All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the work session of the Wildwood City Council for Monday, June the 14th, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Boland.
Here.
Councilmember Galani.
Here.
Councilmember Hopper.
Here.
Councilmember Jaxie.
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Bros.
Here.
Councilmember Garitano. Councilmember Flasher.
Here.
Councilmember Rainbow.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer. Councilmember Nyan.
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni. Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you and welcome again, everyone. Good to see you. And for any members of the public that are joining us, welcome to our work session. No mayor comments or announcements in the work session. Before we get to action items, we have 8 informational items on the agenda. Is there any member of the council that would like to speak to or ask questions about any of those 8 items before we get into the action items for this evening? Councilmember Clark.
Yes, on the, let's see which number that is. Watershed Erosion Task Force. On D2, the initial design considerations. That number of there's a top 6 list on that document, and is that going to take the place of our top 9 that we had at one time?
Without objection, we'll ask our Director of Planning, Joe Vintage, to respond to that. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, particularly Ms. Clark, the intent of that 6 is to be a subset of the 9. And the 6 were selected based upon further discussions by the task force. But that 6 should be part of the overall 9. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes, are those all considered public property that we're talking about? Or are some of them, as I understand, 2 of them look like they have some private property?
Yes, the property off of the Highlands at Wild Horse specifically, and then the other at Evergreen Forest Court. Those are 2 private properties that are particularly problematic. One due to the threat to the rear yard area of a dwelling, and the other to existing utilities that are being exposed and then damaged to a large common ground area that serves as floodplain protection for the overall neighborhood and general vicinity. So there are some private properties identified, and that's, I think, going to be a major point of discussion at our upcoming Watershed Erosion Task Force meeting next week on Wednesday. Thank you again.
One further follow-up on that. I didn't see any measured confidence levels in the repairs, the fixes, the construction that is proposed on those, or at least offered on the document. Do we have some confidence that those repairs will give us 100%, or as we could calculate, knowing that there's water events will happen in the next years, and calculating that in as a variable, do we have a confidence level that those are the best we can do?
I believe so, Ms. Clark, just from the standpoint of the foundation for the reason these numbers have been created in preliminary designs. As you recall, when you're a member of the task force, there is a desire on the part of one of the co-chairs, Dr. Remy, to proceed forward with some type of funding mechanism, in this case, the Parks and Stormwater Sales Tax. And it was imperative in his mind, as well as the task force, that we have some general designs that could develop cost estimates. And that's really all this is an attempt to put not guesses, but our best estimates on these repairs, so that if we were to proceed forward now with any type of funding source, we would be able to provide an educated guess cost estimate on what these repairs might cost. And so a confidence level, that'll come later. And again, we're going to be talking about that at the next meeting of the Watershed Erosion Task Force. The group may be looking at even reducing the 9 from 6 to possibly 2 or 3. So we're kind of going down the funnel and looking at getting better and better information, at least on a few of these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCutcheon.
Yeah, Joe, what wards are those 2 private properties in? And are there any ideas on funding?
The Highlands at Wild Horse is in Ward 2, and the Evergreen Forest Court is in Ward 5. And yes, we have a very extensive spreadsheet that was created by one of the task force members, Richard Sturman. But we're also now investigating not just a sales tax that's been put on hold, so to speak, but other sources that are available to cities. One being bonds, the other being some of the federal infrastructure money if it ever comes out of the United States Congress. Thank you.
Councilor Edens.
Yeah, Joe, I know when we last talked, and I just wanted to clarify this not only for myself, but council as well, that Cox Creek Highlands area included the full estimate of the fix. But my understanding was we could separate it out so that that creek section, which is the quasi-public, we could look at that separately and then have them address their private property concerns. Because right now, I think my estimates together. So when we talked before, my understanding was that section of the creek, fortunately, is quasi-public. Is that still accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
we've
So
got
it's different. Sorry. Yeah, it's different than some of the other areas that are having trouble that have, like, HOA owns the creek and private property in the backyard. So if we could have that ready for the discussion, I think that'd make it easier in Watershed.
Certainly, ma'am. And I'll talk with Joe Wilson and Todd Wagger, who developed these designs and cost estimates, and see if we can create a couple of components for the overall cost. Thank you.
That would be great. And I did attend an HOA meeting with them recently. And my understanding is that the trustees are not expecting us to fix their private property, just that if we fix the public creek, that it would help improve the private property. So that's my understanding of their position.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clark.
On another issue on the biking, walking benefit program, I had brought this up before, that about the wheelchair abled, and I didn't see that mentioned on any mention of including all forms of functional and non-functional mobility on the paperwork we got for today.
Julian.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Clark, we have not identified any kind of wheelchair component to the marketing aspect of it at this point. The resident and volunteer we're working with right now, Hugh Share, is kind of running point on all the outreach with the business owners, the interaction with the bicycle benefits company. So we can work with him to identify if and how we can include that in his marketing efforts. I know that between the two options, for the cyclists and for the pedestrians, we'll be issuing participation cards, and those cards can be used by any walker, wheelchair person. So maybe we can work out something similar to that, where any of the wheelchair capable people can use those cards as well.
Thank you. Anything further from any member of the council as to informational items? All right, seeing none, we're going to go to action items. And without objection, what I thought we would do this evening is move into The next item, following strategic planning, continue with the agenda through inclusion of the executive session and then come back at the end and do strategic planning, assuming time allows for that. Is there any objection from any member of the council to rearrange the agenda for that purpose? Okay. Fair enough. Then moving next to residential building code amendment. So I sent an email to the council about this a few weeks ago, and I saw some responses. So I want to be, and I appreciate those. I want to be clear what my intent on this. I'm not in that email, and I'm not tonight advocating for any sort of wholesale change or replacement by the city of the St. Louis County building codes, which are applied to residences built in our city. And those code provisions under the county are in fact modified under BOCA. So they're fairly standardized. My intent in raising this is really for some safety reasons. And I'll just give you an example. So there is a new type of floor joist that recently has been used in the construction industry. It's called an I-beam. Historically, they were 2x12s made out of pine or what have you, or in some cases 2x10s. And so the I-beam is a manufactured beam, and it looks much like an I, therefore its name. It has a solid wooden frame around the outer edge of it. It can be roughly 10 inches, 12 inches in width, just like a 2x12, but the middle part of it is made of manufactured wood. And I don't know the exact width of that, but it's roughly probably 1/4 of an inch or so. And it is known that those I-beams present a greater fire hazard than do, because they burn fast, than do traditional 2x12. And therefore, it is a good idea, and this is just one example, but I'm going to go down this road with you. So therefore, it's a good idea, in the opinion of most in the fire protection district, to require that if those are used in homes, that a layer of drywall form a ceiling below them so that if a fire does occur, it allows the fire personnel and first responders time to get to the residence before it's completely engulfed in flames and people are in harm's way. That layer of drywall was only recently required to be applied by St. Louis County Building Code. So my purpose in raising this in the email and my request would be that you consider asking our Board of Public Safety to look at whether there might be a few things in our code from a safety perspective that we might want to augment or add to. So for example, if we had looked at this previously, I would have been an advocate for having that drywall required, even though the county didn't require it. And there might be other things like that. There may not be. That's just an example. And I would respectfully suggest that we owe it to our residents to do that. So not a wholesale change or anything of that nature, simply looking really at two things. Number one, whether there might be something from a safety perspective that we would want to add to. And number two, if we do that, then I'm assuming we would need to be the people to check on that and make sure, check it off as the residences are built, but I'm not sure of that answer. So that would be something that could be discussed by the group. So that's the intent. So if you have any questions, I'm happy. Councilmember Dodwell.
I wanted to see if Joe had the possibility to maybe discuss his perception on this and what's been done in the past with individual tweaks, so to speak, to building code, just to inform the rest of the council, myself included, on how any ancillary changes to the code have been addressed.
Sure, without objection. Joe Benich, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Ms. Dodwell, the best example I can give to you is early on in the incorporation of the city, the St. Louis County Building Code as applied did not require roofing felt as part of the laying of the shingles. The city of Wildwood thought that was of critical importance. And so the St. Louis County Department of Public Works did an addendum, so to speak, and in Wildwood, we were able to require that. I see no reason why that if we discover other concerns relative to the building code and its current status, that St. Louis County would not assist us in that regard. Thank you.
your microphone.
So then we would still be able to utilize St. Louis County to do inspections, et cetera. They would just use their standard documentation and then pull out a binder that says specific to Wildwood, I need to verify these things too.
Yes, the plan reviewer would ensure that the requirement that the city of Wildwood is requesting is shown on the plans. And then the inspector would have the copy of the approved plans to ensure that it's installed in the dwelling or whatever the structure may be. Thank you.
And just one last question. Besides what the mayor had just talked about, are there any other instances that you would foresee with new trends in building that we would need to identify?
It's a very good question, Ms. Dodwell, and one I don't have a very good answer for you. But several years ago, due to state legislation, the fire districts were no longer able to do residential inspections of new dwellings. And I would like to talk to the fire marshals of the 3 districts that serve Wildwood and just get an opinion from them. I think if we're concerned about public safety, we could start with the fire districts and certainly hear what they would like to see if they were back in the game, so to speak. Thank you.
And one last question, if I could push my button properly here. If we take watershed as an example and the runoff that we've seen from Cox Creek, the various creeks, and the work that we're doing now, do you expect and anticipate that there will be additional building codes on properties that line up against our watershed areas for future work, and that we need to address those as well?
Ms. Dodwell, with the permission of the mayor, I may defer that one to Rick Brown, our Director of Public Works, as well as our floodplain administrator.
Councilmember Dodwell, I think Joe and I've had some discussions about the possibility that there could be in the future additional regulations relative to stormwater management that could come out of the effort with the task force. If that is the case, those would be things that the department would work with the planning department on implementing and being sure that those are followed as developments are proposed in the future. I don't see that being so much an involvement with St. Louis County, but something that we would do internally.
And I would ask that if, assuming the council agrees that if we're going to have a referral of this to the Board of Public Safety, that watershed erosion, while important, is not a safety per se issue in most instances, at least. And so I would, given that we have that task force, if they want to propose something, we could look at it. But to my knowledge, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, since the formation of the city, there has not been any type of review in 25 years of the code that's being applied to our residences relative to safety issues in particular. And I would also argue that our residents move to our city for something that's just a little bit better than what they might find elsewhere. And they should be entitled to that. So
I'm all for it. I just wanted to see if there were additional things that we needed to add into the research so that
if we didn't have the council can do whatever it wishes, obviously, and I'm fine with it. I would, since we have the task force, my gut reaction says leave it there. But if we didn't, I'd say add it. But since that's kind of their bailiwick, but it's good that we're talking about it. Councilmember Rambo.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this issue to everyone's attention. I have I-beam construction in my home. Just from an engineering perspective, they have greater tension and compression strength, better shear strength, torsional rigidity, structural rigidity. The deflection is better. Everything's better. And they use less lumber overall, and they can use smaller trees because it's like a 2x3 on each side and 3/4 inch oriented strand board that's glued together. So it's environmentally, it's just better in every respect. And when I was doing this years ago, they were on the cusp of bringing out a suite of OSB products that had flame-proof glue, or at least flame retardant, flame-resistant glue, which would make this sort of a no-brainer. And so, there are ways that Wildwood can move ahead from BOCA code, which is house trailers, modular homes, all those things. They're all included under BOCA. It's like a least common denominator sort of a building code, at least it was. And I think we can do better. And so my observation would be that I think we should just include environmental standards in this as well, because I use some, not, toot my own horn, but I used a lot of advanced technologies in my home, and I had to get the guy that runs the electrical building inspection department out to look at my house, the county guy, and I had to get the fire marshal, the captain of the fire department, to come and look at my house because I was doing new things and they wanted to check it out. And so I think time has moved on, and there are more, the products I used have become closer to standard, but if it's been 25 years, it's long past time for a review. And I would love to see us take a forward thinking look at the environmental construction methods that are available now. So thanks.
Is that
again.
a motion?
Yes, please.
To Board of Public Safety?
Well, if we were contemplating a review of the individual building codes from the standpoint of the fire, the burning of these I-beams. And I'm suggesting that we should have a more comprehensive review, and I don't know where that would land.
Parks and Planning.
Okay.
For Planning and Parks.
So that I'd like to make that motion.
Okay. Referral or request to Planning and Parks within how long? 3 months? 6 months?
It may take a while, and I don't know who in the city staff would be best.
Joe, how long do you think would be reasonable? Joe Benich.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask for up to 4 months with the potential for an extension if we find that there's a lot there or more there than we think.
4
And
months.
I would ask that Mr. Brown and I work as a tandem on this.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Dodwell. Councilmember Brost on the motion.
Yeah, I guess it probably applies to the motion, but I just want to point out that the Mayor, as you pointed out, the drywall under the I-joist is actually included in the current code. What I just want to mention to the council is that the building code is it's a slippery slope, I think, for us to get too deep into, but the code is revised every 3 years. And throughout St. Louis County and all the municipalities that follow the code, you might find that Town and Country might, and I may not get the years wrong, but they might be following 2015 code. Another city might be following 2018 code. When, say, the 21 code comes out, St. Louis County may stay at 2018 and they may not update until 2024. So it's just one of the ways to maybe stay ahead of the curve here is that if the city wants to focus on the updates in the code and then look at that as possible additions. But quite frankly, the reason that municipalities and then particularly St. Louis County don't necessarily update instantly to the new code is that it is a significant process in training and understanding. Like you mentioned, Mayor, with the drywall, Creve Core's been requiring it under the I-joists for years. I mean, the I-joists have probably been out there for 20 years now, so those aren't new. But the fact that the burn rate is different, as Rob mentioned, created a more fire retardant product. So, part of it is that maybe we want to try to encourage St. Louis County not to be at times 3 to 6 years behind what is the current code. But I would offer to the city that that maybe as a new code comes out, focus on some of the issues in the new code to help guide us so we don't, I don't want to say open Pandora's box, but this is a tremendous training and understanding curve. So that's what I just want to offer. I'm not speaking in favor or against it. I just say I think we need to be careful because municipalities, it takes years for them to adjust, and there's a training curve. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's a good point. It may be the case that if this motion passes, the Planning and Parks Committee, consistent with what Councilmember Brost, I think, sort of suggested, simply do nothing more than when updates come out, it takes a look at them right away the minute that they are available. And at that point, make a pick and choose decision. If there's something that's glaring that we would like to be done, that we think we could enforce or get the county to enforce, sooner rather than later, maybe that's the approach to take rather than going through the whole thing. Larry, follow up.
Like, for example, another item that's been present with code is to require single family homes to have sprinkler systems. And when the building code comes out, St. Louis County might actually say, okay, we approve it with the exception we're not going to enforce sprinkler systems in a residential home. So it can go both ways, but that's something else that the city might look at, is that the code may actually include something the city doesn't want. For example, St. Louis County has an ordinance against any kind of horizontal railing. They require all railing for decks and staircases and things of that nature to be vertical, so you don't have a laddered effect. So even though it's required, it's okay by code, they actually reverse it. So we might look at stuff that we want to add, but there also could be things in the code that we might want to exclude in order to make Wildwood a better place as well. So it could go both ways.
Good
but
point.
I mean, sprinkler systems in a residential setting, I don't know if we're ready for it yet, but it's in the code.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes, Larry's exactly right. This is a two-edged sword, and my hope is that Wildwood could be leaders on the environmentally sound construction front. To reference my home again, my upstairs walls are R44, and it's what's called structural insulated panels, 3 times as strong with half the weight and triple the insulation of most homes with much better sealing capabilities. And it caused a real to-do as to whether I could actually do them or not among the building inspectors and the central office in St. Louis County. And they all came out and decided that it was okay. But as far as I know, I'm the only home in St. Louis County that has such an advanced construction. And the reason I'm bringing it up is to say that there are other things out there. The building code is very, very slow to change for the reasons Larry mentioned, and maybe we can do better. But as he said, I might be dreaming because it's going to be a whole lot of work. But
okay, Councilor Brost, anything new on this?
Yeah, I mean, just a quick thing on the environment is that I do know there are municipalities that, with respect to construction waste, that they do require that you sort it and try to recycle and versus just having one 40-yard container you throw everything in. So, as somebody that used to be in the construction business, it would cost more money, but there are municipalities that will require some of the debris to be sorted, and that's not going to fall into the code, but that's certainly something as a city we could look at with respect to the management of the waste.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. All right, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion. The motion is to request the Planning and Parks Committee to look at this with a report back based on the discussion tonight, with a report back in 4 months. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, moving next to election of committee, commission, and task force chairs. And unfortunately, we don't have Councilmember Bartoni with us this evening. And, we might, given that there's no urgency on this, out of respect for him, postpone this until the next meeting. I don't think we have an election because we're already sort of done with that. So would there be any objection to moving this? I didn't know he wasn't going to be here. Just out of respect for him, since he's the one who asked for it, it might be more appropriate to do that. So we'll move this to the next agenda. If you'll make note of that, Ms. Eldridge. It's definitely something we need to address, apparently. All right. Director or Department of Planning, Emergency Authorization, Joe.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. With Julian's assistant, I'll show you an aerial photograph as I described. There is a property on Wild Horse Creek Road just to the east of State Route 109 that's been a problem for the city for approximately 4 years. During that period of time, the city has discussed the matters with the property owners, now the most recent one being absent, and have not had success in stemming the deterioration of the dwelling and property. The situation got to the point that the city was about to begin a process under the nuisance code to remove the structure, the dwelling, and all debris from the site due to public safety and the public risk that is associated with it. Much to our surprise, a property owner that adjoins the site purchased it and is now ready to move forward with the demolition and the cleanup. The needed information for the demolition permit is complete. The property owner that would like to demolish the problems is waiting on the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission, which isn't until the end of the month. And under the Historic Preservation and Restoration Code, the City Council can authorize an emergency demolition. As part of the packet of information, the Department of Planning provided photographs of the current status, so to speak. And so therefore tonight is respectfully requesting authorization to proceed forward with the demolition as soon as possible. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Joe, is this the only authority that the city would have to do what you're asking it to do, is to go into the Historic Preservation Code?
The nuisance code would allow it, but there is a process that requires public hearing, at least 30 days thereafter to allow the correction of the deficiencies, and then a process to bid out for the demolition. The Historic Preservation Commission, now that there is a willing owner of property that wants to proceed forward, can authorize it because it is a problem. And under the code, anything over 75 years in age needs that action.
Okay.
Tonight, the department is just trying to speed the process up.
I got you. Okay. And so you're looking for a motion to proceed with the authorization to do this, or to request HPC to look at it? What are you wanting the council to do?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the department is requesting an authorization to release the permit so that the demolition can proceed.
Any questions or a motion to that effect? Councilor Dodwell?
Also move.
Okay, we have a motion seconded by Councilmember Clark. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, that takes us to I'll tell you what, let's go ahead without objection, or do another little rearrange here and handle the receipt and file. Joe, since you're on the floor, would there be any objection to that? And then we go into the executive session.
Not
All
at
right, Joe,
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead. So can you speak to the receipt and file, please?
Yes, members of City Council, previously you received a resolution from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Special Circumstances Overlay District. The Director of Planning had made an error in that resolution that was not identified till after it was approved and received and filed by City Council. Last Monday night, the Planning and Zoning Commission corrected that error. So tonight you are receiving the corrected version of the resolution for receipt and filing. And if there are any questions regarding the matter, I'm here to answer them, and my apologies.
Not a problem. Any questions for Joe? Editorial matter? All right, see no questions. Thank you. So now I would entertain a motion for the executive session. And Joe, we're going to do this in the council chambers. So if you could join us here, I think you're going to be, Joe Benich, I think you're going to be needed for that. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. Made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Flasher. Any discussion on the motion? This will need to be a roll call vote. Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll on the motion to go into executive session.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go into executive session, which means a couple of things. Those of you in the audience with us, if you would please let us have this room for a few minutes and we'll let you know when we're done. Council members will need you to turn off the mics. And that is it. Please make sure your microphone is turned off. And just to be safe, if you have a laptop, if you would please close that laptop. And if we could get the doors closed, looks like we're going to
Test.
Okay, thank you. And so now the microphones would be used. All right, so I want to thank those of you in the audience who came back in for your time as we went into an executive session. And we unfortunately are not going to get to strategic planning, but you have a promise from me that at the next meeting, we are going to talk about Lake Chesterfield. And we may need to start just a little early, depending on, I tried to back off that and give everyone a break, but we do need to get that strategic planning wrapped up. So we'll see what the rest of the agenda looks like, but just a heads up for that, because we need to complete that process. So there being nothing under miscellaneous that we haven't already handled, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the work session. Made by Councilmember Gaetano, second by Councilmember Hopper, non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the work session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Council members, are you okay? We're going to take a 3-minute break, and then we'll come back and begin the main meeting. Please hurry as fast as you can. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting, city council meeting for the city of Wildwood for Monday, June 14, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Galani. Here. Councilmember Hopper. Here. Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell. Here. Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Brost,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Here. Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nine. Here. Councilmember Bartoni, Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. For those of you in the room with us this evening here at City Hall, as well as those members of the public who may be watching remotely. For those of you who are comfortably able, if you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the council's May 24, 2021 work session and regular meeting. If there are no comments or questions on the minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Made by Councilmember McCutcheon. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Galani. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Moving next into public participation, I want to mention just a few remarks about that. Public comment is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak must complete a speaker card and provide it to the city clerk who is seated to your left of the podium. When your name is called, please approach the podium and state your name and ward. To ensure that all those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when the time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it. And at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may also choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may post any responses on the City Council page of our website. Finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
The first speaker card is Ken Remy wishing to comment about the Ward 3 appointment.
Well, thank you. Ken Remy, undoubtedly a part of the top ward in the city, Ward 3. And just so I can ask a question, so I get a response, I just want to make sure everyone agrees that this is the best ward in the city, Ward 3, right, Mr. Garitano? So I just want to say a couple words in support of Mr. Ottenberg for the appointment tonight for City Council. I had the privilege of meeting with him last week, and I can't think of a better person that's been nominated for this position. Mr. Ottenberg's been in the city for over 25 years. He's an engineer by trade and salesperson as well over this time period. He's an avid biker. And what I find most impressive about him is in our conversations, we had very much similar styles about what we believe so strongly about. Mr. Ottenberg was quite candid in telling me that, you know, there will be disagreements at times, but doing so with civility is one of the main reasons which he's excited about being part of this council and for which he can give back to this city. So undoubtedly, I hope that you will rise in support of his appointment tonight. I think he's a fantastic candidate and he's going to join this excellent council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
Next speaker card is Scott Morecourt wishing to comment to introduce his family and property.
Good evening. My name is Scott Marquardt. This is my wife, Tiffany. We recently purchased a home in Ward 4. So we're here tonight just to introduce ourselves and our property. We are the new owners of the properties at 162 and 210 Becker Road. You might know 210 as the former Callahan site. So we're very excited to visit with our neighbors and get this property back to the beautiful characteristics of a Wildwood neighborhood. It's been neglected for many years. Our immediate plans are to beautify the property by simply restoring the pastures, to get rid of the overgrowth, and to remove the invasive honeysuckle. The first step that we're planning to do is just to get the fields lush and green again. We want to make it a nice place that when you drive by, it's a nice place to look at. We're currently in the process of updating the house so that we can move in with our family this fall. We are married. We have 4 children, Eliana, Antonio, Aaliyah, and Dominic. We have hosted many foster children and have learned that the reward from doing that is well worth the tiresome effort. Besides all of our parenting duties, we are the founders of West County Landscaping that is located in Valley Park, but we have approximately 300 active Wildwood residents on our client list. Tiffany is also very active in the foster parent community. She founded the Valley Park Foster Closet. That is a nonprofit resource store for families that are affected by foster care in many different ways. The store is located in space that is donated from our landscape office, and it serves about 50 foster children each month. We currently live in Manchester, but with the anticipated move, we started attending Wildwood Christian Church up the street. And we've just enjoyed meeting many of our neighbors, and we look forward to visiting with the rest of them. If you have any questions or concerns about our properties, please feel free to reach out to us. I will email each of you some information about us as well as our contact information. I want to thank you for your time this evening and your great dedication to this wonderful community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
I do not have any speaker cards.
Julian, do we have anyone online wishing to speak?
We do have at least one individual with their hand raised on Zoom that I will move over right now. The name is Wildhaber. And while I'm doing that, I'll just ask that anybody else that would like to be recognized, please also use the raise hand function and we can call on you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead. Did you hear my, before you start, did you hear my remarks at the beginning of public participation?
Yes. I believe I thought I had sent a card into the city clerk through the website. It sent Joe Vunich had said he had passed it on, but I'm not quite sure if it got connected or not. It was earlier today, so it was kind of a short turnaround on my end.
That was what was forwarded to council earlier.
Yes, it was forwarded to the council. Go ahead with your, so we did get that. Go ahead with your remarks.
Okay, I do apologize if it's the wrong moment in time. It's just I'm asking, I'm part of Bill 2622, and I'm asking that both readings be tonight if possible.
All right, and I had made note of that on the agenda, and I appreciate you coming to public participation to mention that. So, anything
That's all I
further?
had to say. I apologize if that was the wrong position.
Oh, no worries. No, that's fine. Thank you so much. Anyone else, Julian? All right. Okay, moving next into mayor appointments and announcements. Before we get to the appointment, I have a surprise announcement, actually. Our city clerk, Ms. Megan Eldridge, has just been certified as a Missouri registered city clerk from the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association. I just want you to know that we are very proud of you and congratulations. Glad you're part of our team. Appreciate all you do. Okay, next under appointments. So this relates to the, we have one this evening. It relates to filling the vacant position for Ward 3. You have my memo relative to this position and my appointment. And I didn't mention in the memo, but as you might expect, I did undertake an exhaustive search and spoke with several about it. And I am honored to appoint Mr. Ottenberg. His neighbors and everyone around him seem to think the world of him. And so that's a good sign, in addition to the remarks that we heard earlier. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to entertain those questions. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to proceed with the approval. Councilmember Nyan.
just make a quick comment. I'm just gonna echo everything that Ken said. I got an opportunity to meet with Scott and realized, I said, you look so familiar to me. And then I realized it's because he rides his bike through my subdivision and I see him out there when I'm running or walking or driving my car. I thought, how do I know you? Well, that's how. So he's definitely a big biker. But I think he's going to be an excellent addition to council and I'm truly looking forward to working with him. So I voice my support 100%.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. I move that we
Approve the appointment.
approve the appointment.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Second by Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Garetano.
Thanks. I want to echo many of the same comments we heard, and I'm excited to have Scott here become part of the council. I had a great conversation and I can sense the passion that he has in serving for our city. And he's a better dresser than Ken Remy. So that's all I have. Ken, who isn't.
You want to expand on that? Or?
No,
Please don't.
No further comment. I don't want
All
to
right.
engage any debate.
Any further discussion on the motion? See no further discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So Mr. Ottenberg, if you will come forward, the city clerk is going to swear you in.
I, Scott Ottenberg,
Being first duly sworn on my oath,
being first duly sworn on my oath,
state that I possess all the qualifications
state that I possess all of the qualifications
prescribed by law for the office of council member
prescribed by law for the office of council member
of the city of Wildwood, St. Louis County, state of Missouri,
of the city of Wildwood, St. Louis County, state of Missouri,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri,
the provisions of the charter of the city,
the provisions of the charter of the city,
and all applicable laws of this state,
and all applicable laws of this state,
and the ordinances and laws of the city of Wildwood, St. Louis County, state of Missouri,
and all the applicable laws of this state and the ordinances and laws of the city of Wildwood, St. Louis County, state of Missouri,
and faithfully demean myself of the office of council member for the city of Wildwood.
and faithfully demean myself of the office of council member for the city of Wildwood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the team. All right. Congratulations again. Moving into our legislation, we have one bill for second reading. It's Bill 2619, and it's before the council for final passage concerning Ward 8. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Garetano, second by Councilmember Galani. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2619.
Bill 2619, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, reauthorizing a lot split plat for an existing lot of record that is located within section 12, township 44 north, range 3 east, or more specifically being situated at the terminus of Willow Glen Drive, such public street also within the 7 villages of Cherry Hill subdivision, which will hereafter be known as the Marley River Lot Split Plat, second reading.
Thank you. Joe, do you have anything additional you'd like to add to the information that's been provided to the council?
Mr. Mayor, I do not. The plat is being presented on the screen for the review of the city council and yourself. If there are any questions regarding the plat, I'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe? Seeing no questions, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2619.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Okay, the bill passes. Moving next into first readings, Bill 2620 is before the council, and it also concerns Ward 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Garitano. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2620.
Bill 2620, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing certain modifications to existing C8 Planned Commercial District Ordinance number 2549, which governs a mixed-use development located in the city's town center, downtown, and neighborhood general districts by allowing up to an additional 24 months for the submittal and action on the required site development plan, with such being consistent with the favorable action of the Planning and Zoning Commission that is set forth in its May 3rd, 2021 letter of recommendation on the same. First reading.
Thank you. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to mention relative to Bill 2620?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of quick items. This matter was this matter was heard at public hearing 3 weeks ago. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the city council authorized the preparation of the legislation. The legislation is in the form recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, and it has been introduced for consideration. If there are any questions regarding the legislation, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe? Councilmember Farmer?
Yeah, hey, Joe, if memory serves, I think we talked about perhaps either fixing up the signage or cleaning up the general trailer site over there. How are we doing on that?
It's a slow process, but we are working on it, sir.
The other thing I noticed today coming in is it does seem to say that that there is somebody staff there Monday through Friday. But I mean, I've only been by once or twice. I don't remember seeing anybody perhaps there. So, you know, one of the things with these developments, if we're 24 months out and the building is not going to come up overnight, you know, we're probably 3 to 4 years down the road before people are actually going to be able to even possibly move in here. So I'm just concerned that we have a bunch of signage up about something that's, you know, way, way, way down the road. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but it sure would be nice if we could maybe look at how that works.
There are regulations that allow us to do something about it. The discussion that's ongoing right now is not necessarily how long it will take, but there is a desire on the part of the developer to begin the site development plan process, finish the architectural elevations, and begin pre-sales still this year. So I guess the argument is the sales trailer would be a benefit, but my argument back has been, it's been there with nobody employed within it, and that we just need to move it out, and it can certainly be moved back in at the appropriate time.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few of these developments. I think in general, this is a good plan for the city, but I think putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, with a sales trailer and everything else, I mean, getting reservations 2-3 years out is not wise.
And to Councilor Farmer's point, and I'm not a statistical expert on real estate sales, but it would seem to me that if the public becomes used to this, when they actually do start making sales, they might be hurting themselves, because you would want to, you know, it's just become part of the environment, and no one's really going to be paying attention to it as they would if it comes back afresh. So But that's for them to decide, but that might be, if that's accurate, you might want to mention that, I guess.
I certainly will. I think it's a good observation, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything further on Bill 2620? All right, seeing none, it'll be on the agenda for the council's next meeting. Moving to Bill 2621. It's also for first reading and also concerns Ward 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Galani, second by Councilmember Garitano. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2621.
Bill 2621, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an amended contract on behalf of the city with Human Nature Incorporated for the development of additional information relating to the city's Village Green site and how best to develop a phase 1 plan for its future improvement. First reading.
Thank you. Joe, do you want to mention anything relative to Bill 2621?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, with your permission. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this particular matter was before the Planning and Parks Committee, and it did endorse proceeding forward with additional work with Human Nature, the consultant that's been engaged by Wildwood for the Village Green. The reason there is a desire for a phase 1 plan is that the final master plan for the Village Green is completed, and the cost associated with that final plan is in excess of $13 million. Obviously, that's a significant amount, and the desire of the committee as well as the department is to look at a potential process so as the facility could be opened in a shorter period of time and offer the basic amenities that we need for the town center. So the additional $4,000 of contract amount will allow us to achieve that. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to answer them at this time, and thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe relative to Bill 2621? Councilmember Edens?
Yes, thank you, Joe. I just wanted to make sure that I understood when you say basic amenities, would that pavilion be included? And the reason I asked too is, on the budget committee, when we looked at cutting costs, one of the ways to do that is to have a stationary permanent area where concerts can be held and we don't constantly have that rental fee for stages. Is that something I can expect to see with this?
Something certainly we're going to ask be part of the phase 1. And then
Great.
When we start adding other amenities and functional items, we'll see where we end up. And then it'll be up to the committee and city council to make the ultimate decision.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Joe? Councilmember Dodwell?
Just one more add, restrooms. That would reduce the amount of water closets we have to rent on an annual basis.
I'm hoping, Ms. Dodwell, that with the pavilion, we'll be able to do the restrooms as a single structure, so to speak. And it's an excellent suggestion, just as the pavilion is.
Thank you. Anything further for Joe? All right, seeing none, moving finally to Bill 2622 is before the council for first reading, and it concerns Ward 1. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Brost, seconded by Councilmember Clark. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? I'm sorry, any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2622.
Bill 2622, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the division of a legal lot of record into 2 parcels of ground, which will now be identified as the lot split plat of Lot A1 of a boundary adjustment plat of adjusted lots A and B in U.S. Survey 132, Township 44 North, Range 3 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, with such being more specifically located on the west side of Etherton Road, north of Centaur Road, which will hereafter be known as Lot A1 of a boundary adjustment plat of adjusted lots A and B of U.S. Survey 132, first reading.
Thank you. Joe, do you have anything you want to mention relative to this? We did have a speaker who had sent a document that was forwarded to the council with an interest in this particular bill, requesting a second reading. And as you make your remarks, if you have any, could you please let us know if you have any objection to that second reading?
I certainly will, Mr. Mayor. With the assistance of Julian, I just want to quickly show you the proposed lot split. This particular property is approximately 25 acres in size. The resultant lots will be approximately 15 acres and 10 acres in overall area. The property is located in the Chesterfield Valley portion of Wildwood, and the department offers no objection to 2 readings tonight. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Joe? Seeing no questions, is there a motion for second reading made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Brost? By way of background, when we have a motion when we have a bill that's read twice in one evening, it takes a 2/3 supermajority for that to occur, because otherwise it has to be done at 2 separate meetings to allow public comment. Any discussion on the motion for second reading? We'll do this by voice vote, and if that doesn't work, we'll do a roll call. If we think it's going to be divisive. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we have the 2/3 majority. Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2622 a second time.
Bill 2622, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the division of a legal lot of record into 2 parcels of ground, which will now be identified as the lot split plat of Lot A1 of a boundary adjustment plat of adjusted lots A and B in U.S. Survey 132, Township 44 North, Range 3 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, with such being more specifically located on the west side of Etherston Road, north of Centaur Road, which will hereafter be known as Lot A1 of a boundary adjustment plat of adjusted lots A and B of U.S. Survey 132, second reading.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe or any further comments from any member of the council relative to Bill 2622? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2622.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
So Bill 2622 has been passed. There are no resolutions before the council this evening. The last thing before we get to miscellaneous and adjournment is the consent agenda. And this is the appointment of Councilmember Ottenberg to the committees on which former Councilmember Remy participated. If you have any questions about those appointments, I'm happy to take those. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Made by Councilmember Edens, second by Councilmember Hopper. Any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that takes us to miscellaneous. Anything anyone want to mention on miscellaneous? Councilmember McCutcheon.
The discussion on the codes triggered a thought in my brain. I've had a lot of complaints by residents on the ways in which code complaints have been discussed with residents, and was wondering if maybe admin public works could take a look at that and see if we have a consistent approach across the board.
We would need to have that on the agenda for sunshine law purposes. We couldn't do that.
Can we put it on the agenda for next time?
Sure.
Thank you.
If you'll send me an email as to how you would like that title, or specifically what the issues are, so I can get it titled properly, I'd appreciate that. Anything under miscellaneous, anything further? Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I know we've got this at some point on the schedule, but I happen to be out down at West Glen Farms in Truman, in and out a few times this weekend with the baseball season started, and I watched almost a father and daughter get wiped out, and I almost got wiped out, and I watched a bike almost get picked off. So I know we have something on there about perhaps a no left turn sign, but that is a dangerous intersection that we got to do something about.
What is the intersection again?
It's Truman. It's technically Truman Road and West Glen Farm. So the kind of outer road that runs along Manchester down towards Ellisville ballpark and up by the Home Depot and things.
Rick Brown, who's our Director of Public Works, is part of the meeting this evening, and I'm assuming he's made note of that. And so, Rick, if you would please circle back with Councilmember Farmer and anyone else you believe to be appropriate, the other council members in that area, without objection, would appreciate that. Councilmember Dodwell.
I've been asking for this for about 5 years now.
Okay.
So we need to move on it.
All right. Anything further on the miscellaneous? Seeing nothing further, thank you all for another excellent meeting, and congratulations again to our new team member, Mr. Scott Ottenberg from Ward 3. You're welcome. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilmember Hopper, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. Non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and we are